I personally believe that computers will be able to mimic maybe everything what humans are doing.
Dr. Ewelina Kurtys is a scientist turned entrepreneur with a PhD in neuroscience.
Today, she's part of Final Spark, a pioneering tech company developing biocomputing, using living neurons to power AI while consuming just a fraction of the energy of traditional computers.
The problem is that artificial intelligence is using huge amount of energy. And actually this energy usage is growing exponentially. I think it's inevitable that AI will take over, a lot of tasks which we are doing today. But I also think that maybe there will be some new jobs, as we had for the last, 100 years. Many jobs disappeared, but there are new jobs. So living neurons are building blocks, the same as we have in our brains. Keep them alive and we try to program them with electrical or chemical stimulations. So this would be different than today's computers. Digital, we expect neurons are around 1 million times more energy efficient than digital computers. So we expect this kind of biocomputers from living neurons will be much, much more energy efficient. For the most of our evolution, we had totally different environment. Actually, we had a lot of scarcity. Most of the time, there was not enough food, not enough anything. So we had to jump at anything if it was available. And indeed, I think we still have this in our brain. For now, it requires a lot of self-control, and discipline to actually resist this. Because too much information, too much food, too much, buying items, it will destroy you.
Are we still going to be the most intelligent species or not at all?
I'm sure not necessarily.
Hi, Evelina. Welcome to the show today. Let's start just by learning, I suppose, a little bit about you and what you do. So who are you and what is it that you do?
Hello, I'm Ewelina Kurtys. I'm a neuroscientist by background. I did research and PhD in neuroscience about brain. I was always fascinated with that. And after I left academia, I started to work with startups. I discovered a great area of artificial intelligence and all the possibilities which are related to this. So I became fascinated with engineering, with the commercial applications and how you can change the world with this. And now I'm also working on actually the future of artificial intelligence and the next step, which we see in the revolution. We are working on a biological computer, on how to build artificial intelligence using living neurons. And today we will talk about this.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot in there and a lot that, I don't fully understand because I guess, this is an area you're very knowledgeable at. So talk to me about our brains and AI and how they're different, I guess.
So for today, we have artificial intelligence. We have something like neural networks, which are digital, but they are inspired with the living brain. And today, the problem is that artificial intelligence is using huge amount of energy. And actually, this energy usage is growing exponentially. So we can expect that, still today we can manage that, but we can expect that in the future it can become a problem. So we need a solution, and we could expect two types of solution. So one type is alternative energy sources, or second type is alternative computing. And we are working on the second options, how to solve the problem of huge energy consumption by artificial intelligence. So we believe that new ways of computing can solve this. And we are currently working on living neurons. So living neurons are building blocks, the same as we have in our brains. You can keep them in the dish, or also keep them alive, and we try to program them with electrical or chemical stimulations. So this would be different than today's computers. Digital, we expect neurons are around 1 million times more energy efficient than digital computers. So we expect this kind of biocomputers from living neurons will be much, much more energy efficient. And we can run what we run today on artificially living neurons or on artificial digital neurons. We can run tomorrow the same tasks on living neurons, biological. So that will be totally different. We know for sure that neurons are processing information in totally different way than digital. So we know for sure it will be totally different than what we have today.
Wow, because I guess our brains, we're quite efficient, aren't we? We're an efficient creature, and our brains, fairly small, but can take lots of info. One of the issues with computers, and we see it with data centers, don't we? I know that, there's a couple of percent of the entire world's energy resources is just basically keeping these cool, because computers generate a lot of heat and so on and so on. And I suppose
Yes.
that has that environmental impact. What you're saying is you can make computers and things that are going to run the AI infrastructure, which is clearly coming, much more efficiently.
Yes, because neurons process information totally different way, which is, as you said, much more energy efficient. So such a biocomputers will use much less energy for the same task as digital computers.
Wow. And do you see AI as expanding massively? I mean, what's your take on AI? Obviously, you're developing these computers to run it. There's lots of talks about AI and humans and how it's going to take over. Yeah, is that a risk if we make them more efficient like a human brain?
Well, I think it's inevitable that AI will take over, a lot of tasks which we are doing today with our hands and heads. But it's, I think, a normal thing because when you look for the last 100 years, you can see how technology replaced human work. And actually, this is for the better of the humans. So I personally believe that, yes, for sure, many current jobs will disappear due to automatization, due to increasing capabilities of artificial intelligence. But I also think that maybe there will be some new jobs, as we had for the last, 100 years. Many jobs disappeared, but there are new jobs which we never thought about before.
No, I
So
guess
I
one of
think
the things is we can't imagine what those jobs are going to be.
exactly.
We know we're going to lose jobs, but because we
Yes.
don't understand what AI is going to do, we can't imagine. Oh, but these jobs are going to become available.
Yes, that's why it creates anxiety because people know only the bad side. But like for example, today we have a job of I don't know, such social media manager or search engine optimization manager. This kind of jobs didn't exist 50 years ago. So I'm sure there will be something new, and I think the only solution for this is constant learning and being open for learning something new, and maybe doing also something new. That's the best. But for sure, it's not possible to avoid the progress of AI because it's too good to not to be developed. Because you can save a lot of money, and you can have huge progress. So of course, people will do this for sure. And if it's possible to build a computer from living neurons, it will be built for sure sooner or later. So I think we cannot stop this progress.
Yeah, well, I mean, talk to me about these sort of living neutral. What's the some of the major benefits of these? There's efficiency, I
Yes,
guess.
absolutely. Energy efficiency. Another huge advantage is that neurons can be actually multiplied very easily because it's a biological material. So you can produce huge amounts of neurons in the lab relatively cheaply. It's relatively cheap to get huge amount of neurons. And well, we know for sure they work. The best proof for that is the fact that we can talk. So it's something proven by nature. And yes, the best advantage is energy efficiency and a relatively easy way to get materials,
I
at
mean,
least compared to the digital.
yeah, I get. I mean, over the years, we've seen lots of films with
Mhm.
robots, and they're acting like humans. Does this? Are we moving into that? Do you think with the way that the computer will be and be able to expand and things like that?
Well, I think that computers in some way try to mimic our thinking. For example, when you discuss with the chat GPT, it tries to somehow be an efficient human talking to you. So I think it's something what we are actually building because when we build technology, we want to make it suitable for us. So we want that it will be human friendly. And the best way to be human friendly is to be similar to human. So I think that's general tendency that I think people try to design technologies which somehow will be, some maybe in some way similar to us.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the robots that we've seen in films in the past almost look a little bit human. They might
Yes,
walk a
absolutely.
little bit clunky, but they're designed to feel a little bit more human because
Yes,
I guess we like what we know and what we
exactly.
see. I mean, what are the dangers? Are there if anyone's listening to this thinking
Mhm.
this is very scary, what are there dangers and what precautions need to be put in place?
So for the moment, it's hard to say. For sure, we can see that there is a general maybe danger for artificial intelligence, but this is in general. It doesn't matter if it's run on digital hardware or biological. But the danger is, of course, that as we said already, AI can replace jobs, and it will for sure, and also that AI can become smarter than us. So all the people who work on the general artificial intelligence, they are a little bit afraid of us, of AI, and there is a huge problem on how to encode somehow the value function so that AI has the same values as us. So this is general. So I think that for the moment, the challenges which I see for biocomputing are the same as for digital computing. However, because we are using living neurons, this is actually the reason why this project sometimes is controversial. Sometimes people have questions, as you asked. Some people are scared, and this is why actually we are collaborating. We try to get in touch with the philosophers who are working on the ethics and philosophy of technology, and we actually try to encourage them to work on this project on this topic of biocomputing because it's emerging field. Like every new technology, it will bring new questions from the society. Also, the public perception is important of every new technology. So we think that philosophers are much more capable of answering all these questions. We, of course, we have good intention. We want to make the world the better place. We want to make great computers, which will use very little energy. So, of course, it's normal that we see the project from the positive side. But of course, it's important also in parallel to work with others who can think about all the possible ethical questions and considerations.
Do you think AI's got the ability eventually to have some of that empathy and maybe just some ethical standards on when it comes to making choices?
Well, I think, for the empathy, I think in some way it's possible to mimic empathy. Of course, it's something what we feel. So, it's kind of biological thing. But computers are very good at mimicking us. And also today, when you talk with ChatGPT, I think you can already see this. It's really working better and better. So I think I personally believe that computers will be able to mimic maybe everything what humans are doing because it's all processing of some information. For the choices, I think this is always hard because I think you can train computer from some data set as we have today, and the computer can use information from this data set. But when something new happens, then the computer may have a problem, and this is when humans are needed. And I think for the choices, there are always something new. There is always some new choices, which I think even humans cannot agree. There are a lot of ethical questions for which humans don't agree. What is the best solution? So I think I'm not sure the computer should be the decision maker here. There are some questions which are just maybe it's not possible to answer them in such a way which will satisfy everyone.
I guess you're right there that everyone does have slightly different opinions on some of
Absolutely.
these quite contentious issues, and actually sometimes we almost want a rational answer, but as
Mhm.
humans we develop a sort of emotional answer or an answer based on our feelings, which maybe isn't the best one, but it makes us
Mhm.
feel better. So maybe at least AI needs to have a seat at the table to give some rational ideas.
Yes, I think AI is for rational decisions, which are not related to feelings. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and humans, like you say, we don't always get it right, and in fact, there's lots of things that we all disagree on. So just AI being another voice isn't
Mm-hmm.
an issue in that; it is just another voice.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much to unpack here. I mean, what are some of your predictions for the future? Then, I mean, do you have predictions?
Well, well, for the biocomputers, we
Yeah.
predict that we will build bioservers. So this will be some kind of central computers. As today we have cloud computing, you can connect to the server remotely, and the same way you can connect to the biocomputer. Actually, our laboratory is today available remotely, so you can connect to our lab. But for research purpose, and we have scientists from all over the world who are doing experiments in our lab on how to program new living neurons. We have also first clients who pay us actually for the access to the lab. So this is very exciting. And for the future, we expect huge bioservers where we will culture huge structures of living neurons, maybe even 100-meter long. Because in the artificial world, we can build what we want. Of course, we don't have to make it small. And yes, and we expect it will be a huge source of very low power computing computing resource.
I mean, it's incredible to think some of these developments and how you're talking about how
Mhm.
computers could be. I mean, you're talking about running sort of AI systems and things like. Do you think we will start to see that on a more consumer level and the way that computers are built and delivered, or is this purely replacing that sort of cloud storage?
Well, we believe in cloud in remote access because living neurons are very fragile. So it would be we believe it would be difficult to make it on some edge computing or portable computers. However, our competitors, Cortical Labs from Australia, they actually built a prototype of a computer which has some living neurons inside, and they believe in the direction of having a portable computer. Well, we will see. It's also important to say that we don't expect to replace completely digital. We rather think that neurons will be complementary to the digital. So it's not because, of course, when we actually today, when we look at the human brain and at the digital computers, we can see there are some stuff which brain does better, but there are also some stuff which digital computers do better. Because digital computers, they have much more memory, they can do much faster some repetitive computation. So this is also important that sometimes digital is better, of course. So we think rather that, I imagine the future that we will have many new types of hardware. There will be also quantum computing, there will be biological computers, and all of these technologies will be best for some specific area, for some specific tasks. And this is how I imagine that there will be much more variety. And I'm sure also, although this is not our research, but I'm sure that also in the consumer devices, there will be more variety. They will be for sure using less energy, and there will be much more variety of different chips, which will be programmed. So, yes, I think there are a lot of actually things, a lot of new ways of computing which are being developed. So I'm sure some of them will be successful.
There's lots of talk obviously today and what we're talking about now of AI and computers and things like that, but where do we sit in this, as in what what do our brains have that outrank any of those sort of systems? Like, are we still going to be the most intelligent species or not at all?
I'm sure not necessarily. I think I think already neurons actually already when we look at the computers digital, we can see that they can do some stuff much better than us. So I think maybe I don't think we will be the smartest. And when we take living neurons for biocomputers, what they have special? Well, they are very energy efficient, and we don't know exactly how they work. That's a huge challenge in neuroscience and also in biocomputing. That we know our understanding of the brain is limited. We don't know how neurons really encode information, how they process it on the very basic level. but we know only that it's efficient, which is we can see by the results. We know for sure that neurons encode information in time and space, so it's important to know where and at which time point your neurons are active. So that's something what we know, but we don't know exactly how to translate this language of neuron activation into some specific information. So this is still area of research, and this is why we have lab, which is fully automated, where we can run a huge amount of experiments, and we can try to discover this, how to program living neurons.
I guess for lots of people, even just understanding how our brains work and how the brain works is quite complex, because a lot of what it is, it's sort of we know, but we can't really say. A bit like, I know that you're thinking about what I'm saying and thinking of what to answer, but almost can't prove that, but I know that it's happening, and I assume that's happening because that's what I'm doing. I'm listening to you. And it's understanding how our brains work, and then taking some of that and being able to implement it into other systems.
Yes, this is fascinating. Although I think we can prove in some way that humans are thinking, because there are a lot of imaging studies. So actually, when you perform some specific task or you are thinking about something, it's possible to measure non-invasively the activity of your brain. So in some way, we can be quite sure that humans are thinking. But yes, it's very difficult to translate this processing information into the biocomputing, because there are still a lot of secrets about this. But when we discover this, it will be huge, the revolution, not only for biocomputing, but also potentially for neuroscience, for medicine, because maybe we will be able also to modulate the human brain if we understand how to code, how to encode information into this.
Wow. Yes, I hadn't really thought about that. The medical side, obviously, AI, I think, has got a really good place that it can, move into healthcare. The way it analyzes results, the way it views, imagery, and like you say, scans of the brain. At the moment we have, physical transplants with hearts and livers and things like that. Do you think in the future there will be options to reprogram parts of a brain and put living stuff inside? I mean, I'm way out of my depth here, but so I'm leaning on you to provide me some details if I'm talking rubbish or if this is vaguely possible in the future.
No, I think it will be possible. It's a matter of time, although this is not our objective. That's not what we work on. But yes, I'm sure, because there are already some research on how to put some living neurons, which are cultured in the laboratory, into brain. I think currently it's done on the animals, just some trials. And this can be used, for example, during some brain damage. You can replace missing part. So that's a great, would be great opportunity if it will be possible. And there are also, I'm sure, some ideas about putting some artificial stuff. For example, Neuralink, they want to put electrodes in the brain to make it more potent. So yes, there are ideas for putting both biological and dead matter into the brain to enhance it. And of course, there are also ideas for genetic modifications of humans. So yes, there are a lot of ideas on how to make brain better. So I'm sure it will be a matter of time until it will be possible.
And I guess that's where some of that ethical, sides come in. As
Yes.
what should we be adapting?
Yes.
What shouldn't we be? And what issues could that cause?
Yes, I think interacting with human brain is much more challenging. And I think those projects are much more challenging because they need a lot of ethical approvals. So I think it's much more difficult to get this.
How long have you been? Yeah, how long have you been working on what you're currently doing?
So I think I work with Final Spark around 4 years. I stopped counting. So yes, because as I said, when I left academia, I left my research. I was doing experimental biology at that time, and after I left to industry, I wanted to discover how it is outside academia, how things work, and then I discovered the amazing world of startups, all the small ideas, which I think are very exciting. And then at some point, I become fascinated also with AI, because that's a great, it brings a lot of new possibilities on how to change the world. So I became fascinated with this. And then when I found the Final Spark project, then I thought it's perfect because it combines neuroscience and engineering. So these two things which are fascinating for me. So I thought it's perfect combination.
Well, yes, but it is still fairly new
Yes.
ideas, new technology. Um, so a lot of people will be hearing about this for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. However, I think it's part of the bigger trend, which I see, because I think there are more and more projects where you have to combine the knowledge from biology and engineering. And also, when you look at the universities, in some universities in Europe, you can see already programs which are actually for students to combine neuroscience and engineering. So this is, I think, a great blend of skills. And there are many projects on also human brain machine interface or some prosthetics. So I think there are a lot of things, a lot of projects coming where you will need to we will need to combine the knowledge of biology and engineering, and maybe this is also part of even bigger trend in general in science and engineering, that we are becoming less specialized, but we need to handle a few topics at the same time. So such a multidisciplinary projects, I think, are more and more today than in the past.
I guess as you know, AI is able to be so good and so specific in
Mhm.
certain areas. Actually, the benefit maybe humans have is able to join it all up, which AI might be able to do as well at some point. But it means we can oversee
Yes.
those bits. So, would you say people going into education now should maybe try and be a little bit wider rather than specialized?
Yeah, that's for sure. But what I think for sure is that it's good to follow your interests. So actually, I think actually when you are young, it's good to be specialized at the beginning, because I think that it's good to know one topic well, because after you will go in other topics and you will discover the ideas, the rules are the same. For example, when I did my PhD in neuroscience, okay, I get some training in scientific reasoning, and that actually applies also for engineering, even if engineers are thinking a bit differently than the scientists. But still, every time you enter a new field, you actually, it's not so new anymore. It's like you can learn from what you know before. So actually, I think paradoxically it's good to know one topic very well, because that also trains your brain. So when you become generalist too early, I think I don't think it's good. But of course, everyone has his own journey. So I think it really depends. But I think it's good to know one topic very well. Although you see now maybe they are such smart students that they know two topics or three very well, so that's also not bad. But I think it's still good to learn something manually and understand really how it works, because also to use AI, it's also important to know the basics, because you can run AI to do the job for you, but only if you know the job. So even, for
Yeah.
example, when you want to use AI for programming, it's not possible if you don't know how to program or anything. Or even if you want to use also AI for some scientific research, it's not possible if you've never read any scientific paper before. So I think it's still very important, actually, and sometimes maybe not appreciated, to learn some very, very basic stuff about one topic, very fundamental things, because that really, I think it also increases your understanding on the world. So I still advise learning fundamentals, but also learning what you like, because we don't know the future. Really, it's hard to predict. Some people say that, for example, engineering jobs will be less and less, because AI will be coding, or maybe there are some other predictions that many jobs will disappear. So I think the only thing which is sure is to do something what you enjoy, because then it's also easy maybe to transit to something else if you follow your interest, and then you will have much more energy also to to even if you have to change a bit the direction. So I think that's important. The only sure thing to follow is to follow your interest, because anything else, you never know, maybe will be replaced by AI. Any job, actually.
Yeah, I guess with working with AI, knowing the right question and knowing the right prompt,
Yes,
that's going to be key. So exactly like you say, it's all right thinking, oh, AI can do the programming, but if you don't know how to explain what it is you're trying to do
absolutely.
and have a basic understanding, you need to have some knowledge to know the right question to ask.
Yes, yes. And I have to see also if AI makes mistakes, because AI, of course, is not perfect at making a lot of mistakes. So actually, this is why we observe such an issue now on the job market, that there are more and more, there are actually less jobs for juniors, because actually junior job is something that can be replaced by AI. But people who have experience, who did junior jobs in the past, they can now run AI. But also in the future, we need more people who will know the basics, so they can run AI on the general, more on the general level. So I think it can create a gap, because now juniors have a problem to get training, but when this current seniors will retire, then maybe we will have a problem.
Yeah, there's lots to think about there. You mentioned just previously about training your brain, and when we're learning and focusing, do you see our brain still as something we should be constantly training?
Oh yes, this is also a great way to avoid any neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer, Parkinson. Of course, there's a lot of genetics and other factors, but it's proven scientifically that learning constantly is decreasing your chances for the brain diseases. So I think it's very useful to keep learning.
Is it good enough just to, give yourself little challenges, whether it's, playing little games or things like that? Or should we constantly be actually trying to learn a new skill? What is better to keeping our brain fresh and healthy?
I think it depends on our ambition, on how much free time we have, on a lot of factors. But anything is better than nothing. The same as with sport. So
Yeah.
anything is better than nothing. I think that's a good rule to follow.
But we know that actually by working our brain, we can keep it healthier for longer and potentially keep
Mhm.
away some of those diseases.
Yes, absolutely.
God, I mean, our brains are very, very clever then.
Oh, yes. Yes, then it's really great computing power. Neurons are, to our knowledge, the best actually unit for processing information. So, yeah, we think it's amazing, and we hope we will be able to use it in biocomputers also.
Wow. Thank you so much for, explaining that to me today. I mean, there's been so much that we have covered in actually quite a short time, but, to summarize today, you're taking some of the benefits of humans and our brains and the way
Mhm.
they work, and then moving that into the AI world that we're
Yes,
certainly moving into. And you see this as a real future, the future of computing and the future of AI.
yes. Yes, we believe that's the future of AI, of artificial intelligence. We think, yes, indeed, that all the tasks which today are done on artificial neural networks will be much better done on biological neural networks, on real neurons.
Wow. And just, I mean, I guess a final question, are you still optimistic for, humans and the way we live in the world, or actually are we going to have a challenging time in the future?
Well, I'm personally very optimistic, and I always see the bright side of the future. I think every scientist and engineer wants to make the world a better place, or at least most of us. So we see the potential, what can be done better. I think a lot of things can be done better. I really believe in the power of human imagination, that we can find a solution for every problem which we have today. So I'm personally very positive. Also, I know some people are skeptical about technology development, but I think when we look at the last 100 years, or even you don't have to look that far, but even if you look at the last 100 years of the humanity, I would personally definitely prefer to live now than 100 years ago. Every time you go to the dentist, every time you go to the pharmacy, every time you have really some infection also, or, there are so many things which are solved with the science and technology, which make our world much better, much easier. Everything is so accessible today. It's much easier to get anything, even the items, everything becomes so cheap. Why? Because there is a lot of automation, because, a lot of progress, things are much easier to make. So I personally see this as a good effect. Of course, there are also some challenges, but still I think that the quality of life of humans is increasing. This is at least my personal view. So I'm always optimistic about the future. Yes.
I mean, just on that very briefly, are our brains catching up fast enough for the new way of living? I have heard lots about, just our brains are still sort of stuck in a, almost like prehistoric time. We talk about fight and flight when the
Yes.
phone's ringing. Will our brains eventually catch up to be into the modern world?
Well, I think it's challenging because indeed, for the most of our evolution, we had totally different environment. Actually, we had a lot of scarcity. Most of the time, there was not enough food, not enough anything. So we had to jump at anything if it was available. And indeed, I think we still have this in our brain for information, for food, for anything that we take too much when it's available. So I think it's a big challenge. And I think for now, it requires a lot of self-control, and discipline to actually resist this, because too much information, too much food, too much, buying items, it will destroy you. So I think it's very important. It's very important today to try to eliminate stuff from your life, not to add too much. And for example, like TikTok, all the stuff on social media, of course, our brain is not used to that because brain is slower, and it's much better, to focus maybe on reading some book. Although books are not for such a long time in the human history, but still, it's much better maybe to restrict the amount of information which is coming to our brain if we focus on that. So this is something I'm also fighting with that on the everyday. So actually to limit the amount of information and or other stuff which are coming. So I think it's just a new challenge which we have, because before we just had to fight for every little bit of everything, and now we have too much of everything, and we have to start to restrict ourselves, not to not to blow up.
No, I guess, and lots of people are starting to realize that, and there certainly are conversations around that. I think we hit a period where, like you say, everything was so accessible, and we
Yes.
thought that was the best thing. And now we're finding actually it's causing some other issues. We're seeing a rising anxiety and other things there because we're consuming so much info. It was interesting what you said there about food as well, because yes, in the past, we didn't always have food available. So we
Yes.
would, try and eat when we managed to get some. But the problem now is food is always available, but our brains keep wanting us to eat and eat and eat and eat in case it runs
Yes.
out. Hence why, we've got an obesity issue and people are putting on weight, and that's putting pressure on health services.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, we need to be more aware of our brains and
Mm-hmm.
try and slow ourselves down a little bit.
Yes, which is very difficult because there's so many temptation all around us.
Yeah, I mean, what just quickly, because you said, you're fighting that as well. What do you do to try and, keep your brain sort of level?
Well, I think the only thing you can do is just to work on your habits. So just to try to eliminate bad habits which are draining your energy. So, for example, if I watch too many social media, then I try to remove the apps from my phone for some time. So I think mainly it's about consideration about your habits and trying to get better habits. That's I think the best, because a lot of things during the day we do automatically. So we should try to make environment in such a way that it help us to follow good habits, not to trigger us to do more and more bad habits.
Yeah,
So
just
that's at least my
removing
advice.
things. I know it's always really hard, isn't it? We can give great advice, but being able to follow it, we're all up against a lot of the same challenges. And I guess,
Yes.
replacing one habit with another. You said there about
Mhm.
rather than scrolling, try and read a book. And I guess as soon as we're sort of aware of things like that,
Oh yes,
actually
absolutely.
make sure you've always got a book available so that when you
Yes.
notice yourself scrolling, go, hang on,
Yes.
I'm going to put that down and read a page. And when you read a page, you probably read the second page and the third page, and you start to replace it.
Yes, and for example, when I see that I'm scrolling too much on social media, then I remove the apps for some time. Or, also it's good to have environment that you have books around in your home. And I don't know, it's just so that it triggers you to do something more beneficial for your health.
Do you think there's a greater danger to young people and, well, children, and that while their brains are still developing, do you think it's
Yes,
slightly more
because
dangerous for them?
yes, probably yes, because they are much less self-aware. They are less aware of the consequences. So yes, I think it's much more difficult when you're a child to resist. I remember myself eating chocolate every day when I was young. So when you're young, you don't have these limits, but also you can handle maybe more. But
Yeah.
but
Oh,
it's
I mean,
dangerous. Yes.
yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really, really enjoyed
Thank
speaking
you
to
too.
you. I will carry on following what you're doing and wish you and your lab and all of your team all the best in your, future endeavors and the experiments and the development and the time that you're putting into that. So, yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the interesting chat. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.